Have you ever seen these help widgets on websites like shiftnudge.com, where you basically have a chat button in the bottom right corner of the screen? As you scroll down, it just stays there and you can click it and this help widget expands out and you can send a message. Well, this is created with Helpscout right here, which is like $25 a month, and I don't really want to pay that. But still, I want to add this same effect or same functionality to Framer.university. So, people when are like scrolling on one of my, resources or something like that, they can click a little button and they can share their feedback in this little form. So I'm going to be building this in this video. It's going to be a raw tutorial. I'm going to show how to like build this form in Framer with a native form builder, how to set it up so it goes to your email address. So once someone like sends a message here, it goes to your email address and you can reply back to them. It's going to be a feedback widget, but you can set it up in a way that it's like a little a help widget, so people can send messages to you if they have any questions. But yeah, in this video I'm going to show this how we can do something like this. I'm going to be animating this, so it's going to look pretty cool, at least I hope. But yeah, it's going to be a live tutorial, live process. So this is the first time of me trying to create this. So yeah, my name is Nandi. This is Framer University, and let's get started. So as you can see, my basic setup right here is that I have this component. Within that component, we have this widget, and this component is placed above every single element on the website. It is set to fixed positioning, pinned to the top, left, and right, set to 100 VH, so it takes up 100% of the given viewport. And yeah, basically that's the setup right here. And I'm going to click into this component so we can actually see what we have. So I just put together a little design right here. It's not really responsive or anything, so as you can see, it's not really perfect. I just made it so that I have the design, and now I'm going to basically create it from scratch again to make sure that it's structured in a way that we can animate it nicely a little bit later. So, we're going to have that little icon, like this chat icon, that we can also click, and it's going to have a hover state, which is going to be a little bit different to this one. And then it's going to have this expand out animation when we click it. And I want to make it really fluid and really nice, and I can, hopefully make that happen. So first of all, I want to create the little icon that will be the trigger for the widget. So let's do that. So first of all, I want to create a little frame here. So let's draw a frame. Also, I'm going to launch Keystroke Pro, so you're going to see my shortcuts. So 48 is going to be the width and height. Let's call this button. I'm going to round these corners and set, 6 for now. And then here are the icons that I want to use here. So let's just paste them in here. And then what I will do is, so first of all, we have to think about what certain animation we want to have for these different icons. So when we click this button, I want to go from this chat icon or message icon to this icon, and I could just simply switch them with an instant transition, or I can add some sort of animation. Maybe we can add something similar to a card flip, where this icon flips and then on the back side we see the new icon. I think that would look really nice. So let's do that. So within the button, I can paste in this message, and then I'm going to center it, Option H and V, and then I'm going to wrap it in a frame and then call this message icon. Then do the same with the other one. Center it. You cannot see this, but let me just hide the message icon. Wrap that as well, and that's going to be Chef icon. Great, so now we have both of these. These are now right on top of each other, as you can see. And now I'm just gonna wrap them in another frame, which is gonna be called icon or icons. And so now if I add a transform to the icons and rotate this, so maybe it's gonna be flipped along the x-axis. So as you can see, as I flip this, I can still see the backside of the first icon. So to prevent this, what we can do is we can set the message icons back face visibility to hidden. So as you can see, it's still visible. It's because the icons should have a preserve 3D property. If you, by the way, don't know how to use these 3D transforms in Framer, I have a really great crash course on this. You can find that on my channel. I'm going to leave a link in the description for that. So now as you can see, if we flip this like along the x-axis, we have this animation, but the chevron is like pointing to the top and it should be pointing to the bottom. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it. So I'm gonna just click the chev icon frame and then rotate this 180. So now if we do this, this is what we'll see, but as you can see, the message icon looks a bit weird here. Yeah, because we can see the chevron icon in the background on this state. So to prevent that, what we can do is we can select the chevron icon and set the back face visibility to hidden. And then instead of rotating it like this, we can 3D rotate like this, maybe 180. And hopefully it's gonna look good. So let me just show the message icon. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So basically this is something that I'll be able to animate really easily. On one variant we're gonna have X on 0, and then we're gonna animate it like this, and boom, the chevron will appear. I think it's much nicer than just hiding one and showing another, like just with an instant transition. It's great to add these little details into our designs. So yeah, this is gonna be pretty good. So this is the button, and we can continue creating the rest. So it's gonna be really interesting because we have to make sure that we set this up in a way that basically everything is wrapped in the same frame. So the button, all the fields, and all like the whole widget, and in a way that we can animate it out in like a fluid way. Hopefully we can do that. So we're gonna have like, I think when I hover this, what I want to show is a little message, or not a message, it's a little label that I want to show that says share feedback. So when people hover this, they can get a little bit more context about what this button does. And so let's do that. So I'm gonna just write share feedback here. I'm gonna select the, I think it's gonna be book, and I think this should be wrapped, these two should be wrapped in another frame like this. Each should have like maybe 6, and then this should have 2, and then maybe a bit of padding, 4, and on the left a little bit more, and then some corner radius. Okay, so yeah, I think the hover state will look something like this. Maybe a little bit less padding on the left. Yeah, so I will have something like this for the hover state. And so let's continue building this. So here's the button that we see initially. And then here is the text, but you know, the text will be hidden when we go into the full widget. As you can see, it's opened here and it's not visible. So the text will somewhat go right here and then disappear. And as you can see, the text and the button will be wrapped in this bottom like frame that is on the bottom of this whole widget. So let's create that bottom frame. So the share feedback and the button is in a frame which is called bottom. Okay, let's set it to with fit and then set these to 12. And the gap here in this stack can be 0. And so we have this bottom frame. This will be animate out, so we get this right here. And then we can, I guess, start putting in the rest of the frames for these elements here. Yeah. Okay. So what if I put a frame in here within this stack? As you can see, it's placing them right next to each other, but if I set the stack to vertical direction, then they're going to be placed like this, which is much better. What's the corner radius in this, by the way? It's 8. No, it's not 8. It's 12. It's much smaller than what we have here. But I couldn't really have smaller radius because then I don't really like that these two not line up. But maybe when we will go into this state, then the background color here will change as well, and then we will no longer see that the corner radius is not matching. Yeah, maybe we'll do this. So we have this frame in here. What is the width on that? It's around 330. And then make it larger. And then in this state, we will be able to remove these paddings. So we can set it to 4 on all sides. And then in this state, the button, or not the button, but the bottom will be set to with fill and then set to space between. As you can see, I'm just like playing around with the like the different states that we're gonna have and like going through it. But in this state, I'm not creating the variants. This is still just within the feedback widget component, but this right here, what we see, will be a separate component that I'm about to create just in a couple of minutes. But here I'm just, experimenting, just thinking about how the whole thing will be structured, and yeah, not really defining the variants just yet. So yeah, and here we're gonna just set the opacity to 0. Yeah, it's gonna work really nicely. And then what we can see is that this right here, the bottom that we created, it goes to the sides. So we will not be able to have the padding, because here, as you can see, we have the little gap. And also this here will be 1, and this here, this will not have a background color, and the bottom will have fill color 2. And we will remove this. Yeah, something like this. And then the stack can be set to overflow hidden. So it nicely crops it so it has that corner radius. And then the rest of the content will be within this frame, which can be called like form content. This can be called widget. Feed, I just widget, yeah, widget. Widget, okay. And so as you can see here, we have the form fields and everything, but first maybe create this stack right here. So I already did this, so I'm just gonna copy this and paste it into form content. Let's turn the form content into a stack by pressing this layout button and then set the distribute to start. And then make sure that it is set up correctly. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. Okay. So this is the personal or the top. Let's just call it top. And then below that, we're gonna have the form. Okay, so the way you can create forms in Framer is you press I on your keyboard, you go to, or you don't go anywhere, you just type in form, and you just drag and drop this form builder here. You're gonna see that you have all of these like predefined input fields, and you can easily adjust these. So you can click each of these input fields and you can change the radius, the padding, the color, the placeholder text, you know, change everything about this input. You can also change if it's like a text input, number, email, and everything. So you can really customize everything about this. However, I already have these presets here, so I'm just gonna copy these over. So let me make this a little bit larger. You can also see that we have a submit button, but we will also customize that. So first of all, let's just set this form to width fill. Then the padding will be, I think it will be 20. And the gap will be around 16. And then I will just remove all the labels and all the, not all the buttons because we only have one button, but I'm going to also remove that. So then I can just paste these designs in that I already created. And the button. Okay, so we can make this a little bit larger. Maybe we can set it to fit content. Yep. Okay, so that looks great. One little question that we might have is that, let me just put it right here next to it. So as you can see on the final design on the right, we have border around the widget, and on the starting state, when we only see this little button, this doesn't have a border. So it's gonna be interesting how we animate this in. So we will have to think about that, where exactly we want to introduce that into our design, in like what state of the animation. Regarding the form, we have one input for a text type input. It's for the name. Then we have for the email an email type input. And then we have the feedback, which is a text area. It's called feedback. And then I think we should also have a hidden. I forgot that. We have a hidden input. Let me just put it right here. Let's set hidden to no. So you can see that we have this hidden input, which is a text input. I'm gonna remove the max height and min height from it. So as you can see, it's fully empty. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it a value here. So this is gonna be turned into a variable, and this will always be pre-filled with this value. So as you can see, if I set something right here like Nandi, then it is written right there. So if we turn this into a variable, what we will be able to do is, let me just show it to you. So this is, let's call this page. And if I select this component and set the page to the title, then you can see that here on the Metallic UI component page, we see the Metallic UI component here pre-filled for that input field. And if we hide this, so we set hidden, then the users will not be able to, change what is written right there. They cannot see that input, but they can still see the rest. And when they send the message, I will also see in the submission their name, email, feedback, and also the page. So I will see that Metallic UI components, so I can see where they were when they sent this message, on which specific page within Framer University. It's just a small useful data that I can work with. I can see that maybe if they have a feedback like something isn't working, I can know on what page they were when they sent that little message. So that's what we use that hidden input for. So that's set up correctly. I will just have this little variable for it. Okay, so that's good. Let me see if I need to set up anything else here. Yeah, so now the tricky part is, how do we make sure that this widget on the first state, it's just a little icon. I think we're just gonna make it fixed, and then let's see what happens if we start resizing it. You can see that it doesn't really look great because when we resize, I want to resize it to this button. What if we set this form content to widget? What if we set the distribute to end and the alignment to the right? Okay. Okay, so it's not bad, but at a certain point it starts pushing that. It's because we still have this text here, it's just hidden. But I think that's gonna be great. Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. Okay, I think this setup will work. Let's set this back to fit. And this should be fill. Okay, so let me just set this form content to gap 0 and then make sure that this whole widget has a border, which is 5. And I think this bottom here also has a top border. 5. Only on the top. Okay, so this is the final design. Let me just make sure that this is 90% transparency and a little bit like BG blur maybe on that, 8 pixel, so that we will, be able to see through this component just slightly. So as you can see, if I scroll, I can just, really slightly see what's in the background. And yeah, I think at this point I can turn this into a component. At least I can try it. So widget, turn this into component. So this will be the opened variant, and then we can start going back from this. Okay. So what we can do is we can create a new variant. And this variant will be, maybe let's first create the default. And the default variant will be just the icon. So just this right here. So let's go back to that. So first of all, on that, this will not have border. So I'll set the color to 0 transparency. Then, so it's really interesting when you do this, because you also have to think about the different effects that you want to see when you go from the default to the opened variant. Because for example, if I want to have a nice fade in effect on these elements right here, on the top and on the form, then I have to set these here to 0 opacity so that they will animate in from this state, 0 opacity to 1 opacity. So I'm thinking that I maybe want to have like a fade in, so like opacity will be 0, but also I want to like blur them out. So maybe I'm gonna also blur them, set these to like 4, same on the form. Blur, where's blur? Filters, blur, okay. What did I have on this value? 4. And also opacity 0. Okay, so they will be animated in from this state. So here I can set it to fixed, and start moving this down. But also I have to let's show this share feedback button or label, and then I think it should be absolute, and then 0. And here on the primary, I also add user select and maybe pointer events to none as well. I'm adding it to this text on the primary variant because I want to make sure that it is applied on each variant. If I just add the user select here on default, it's going to be only applied on this simple single variant. So that's good, but then the distributes should be set to start. Am I selecting the right? So for some reason it's here now. It's because space between should be like set to end instead. And then we also removed the top border. I'm setting the opacity to 0 and not removing the border because the opacity will be animated nicely. Okay, so set this a little bit. I think it's 48. Yes. And then 48 here as well. And then the radius is 24. And also what I forgot is that here it's flipped. So 180. As you can see, 180, this will be the animation. So here it's 180 and here it's 0. So this is the default. And then another one here should be created for the default hover. And so what are we changing here? That's a great question. So first of all, we set the share feedback from absolute to relative, but then this should be fit instead of fill. And then this should be animated like this. Let's also show the text. Okay, so this is animated out to the left, but then this frame here needs to be having a little bit of left padding, maybe 20. And we just try to match that. distance. Okay, so this, I don't know what, oh, was this 12? Why do we have 12 here? Isn't it too much? I don't know. I think 0 is enough. Am I stupid? I don't know. It's weird. Maybe a little bit less on the left. 16. Okay. I'm not sure actually if this is how it should be, but we will try this and we'll see what happens. I think we have everything. So yeah, so this is the part where you think that it's great, and then when you start animating, you realize that it isn't. I just built enough things in Framer that I already know this. So, okay, let's start from the default. Let's just check how the default to default hover works first of all. Mouse enter, and then from the default hover to default, we go with mouse leave. Let's take a look at this. Hover, leave. Well, this actually looks not bad. We will be able to, of course, change the easing. So how this transition plays out, but for now, I'm gonna just keep it on default. I'm gonna also make sure that this right here, so here, on the default, the button, or maybe the bottom. I hate when I have bottom and the button as well, because they are so like similar sounding words, and I don't want to confuse you. But I'm gonna select the bottom on the default and the default hover, and I'm gonna set their cursor to pointer. So here on these two variants, it's going to be pointer, but here it's not going to be pointer. As you can see, if I hover this, it's not pointer, but here it's going to be pointer. So we are just, indicating that this is clickable. On this here though, only the button will be cursor, web cursor pointer. So here we can see that, yeah, we can click this. And here on the default, we can see that we click this whole thing with the label as well. Okay, so now comes the interesting part. Go from default hover to opened on click. And then when we click this button, we go back to default. But since we added this interaction, the primary, we have to remove it from these. So button, click default is removed, and from here, click default is removed. Now this is gonna be interesting. Here it's gonna probably look weird because, yeah, it's like, as you can see, it's defaulting to like the center of the viewport. A more accurate preview would be to set this to absolute here, and then 24, because that's how it's going to be placed. It's going to be placed absolutely to the bottom right. So let's take a look at it here. Okay, so hover, click, hover, click. Okay, what I noticed, it looks a bit weird, but the first issue that I notice is that when I close it and I keep my cursor on this variant, I cannot click it. I can click it, but nothing happens. To fix that, I can also add this click transition to the default. So when we click this, we go to the opened. So let's take a look at it again. I can keep my cursor down and it will be nicely going back and forth. Now, there are some weird things happening. So to see exactly what is going on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen record this. Or maybe I'm not sure, because I'm also recording my screen at the same time with another tool. I don't want to play around with that actually. So I'm just going to I'm just gonna make this transition longer so we can better see what's going on. Well, that wasn't really longer. Okay. Okay, let's set this back to a little bit quicker transition, maybe 1. Actually, what we will for sure want to have is faster transition on the hover. So on default, on the default variant, we're gonna have that's actually hard. That's actually hard because when we are coming from the opened to the default, we want to have long transition, but when we coming from the default hover to the default, we want to have a faster transition. So that's actually not easy, because then we probably have to create a new variant, a new default variant, which will be for default from opened. So when we are coming from the opened, we're going to come to this variant, because here we can specify that longer transition of like 1 second. Maybe it's not going to be 1, but for now we are going to keep that 1. So here, this click will not take us to this default, but the one below that, default from opened. This will go on hover to default hover, but from that we're going to go back to default like that. And then what we can have is a little bit quicker transition here. Maybe 3 or 4. And then 4 here as well, 0.4. Okay, so it's quick here. It's a little bit slower and a little bit slower back here as well. It's slower because when we have like this bigger movement, we usually want to have a little bit slower transition on those, but not 1 second. I'm just realizing that 1 second is just too slow. So I'm going to select these 2, which are slower, and going to make them a bit quicker. Maybe a little bit more bounce can also be there, because like, you know, there's just more movement. Let's take a look at this. It's definitely too much bounce there. Let me just set it back to like 0.3 maybe. Okay. First of all, let's select both and set it even, like 0.2 bounce is perfect, and maybe 0.6 time. Yeah, I think that's good. But what I don't like is that when I come into this view, I think it's good. But when we come back, I think we could have a little bit less bounce, even like 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and I'm going to select 0 bounce. Okay, cool. Okay, so I just came here to the opened variant and then made the time 4 seconds, so I can get a more accurate like representation of what is happening exactly on that transition. And I think everything animates nicely. So I kind of like how the form and everything comes in, and then maybe the feedback text, I don't really like that it's like moving to the left. So we can fix that. I think it's because on the default hover we have 16 left padding. I think we should have that everywhere. So I'm gonna reset override, and I'm gonna come here bottom and then 16. So it's gonna be applied everywhere, and I think it's no longer gonna go to the left. Yeah, it's gonna stay there but lose the opacity. Okay, I do really think that the rest is okay. Now let's slow down the transition to the default from opened variant. So 4 seconds. Check out that. Okay, so what I don't really like is that when I click this, there's like that, I don't know, like border appearing around the edges. It's not really visible here because of the background color. But maybe if I come here and show it here, you can notice it better. I cannot click it here. It's because basically this component here, it's set to pointer events none. So we cannot interact with this overlay component. It's because I want to make sure that I can still interact with the layers below it. So for example, I can click these buttons here and everything. So what I need to do is I have to select the widget here and set that to pointer events auto. So I can interact with that only. As you can see now, I can click into this. So, oh my God, that doesn't make our life easier. Yeah, so we see a different transition here because this component, this default variant here, this feedback widget component also has these transition settings, and yeah, we have to set that to something a little bit longer. Let's see if it's gonna be a fix for us or not. It's weird, like the transition is a bit weird. Yeah, okay, so basically the only fix for this, I think, is to not wrap this within a component. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna just detach this instance and just have it as a simple frame here on this canvas, and I'll just be able to paste this into each of the pages where I want to include this in. So now it's right here. Let's see if now I can, yeah, it's much better. So we can actually see what's going on right here. As you can see, when I go back, there's like a little border, like a really thick border appearing around the edges of the widget. And that's really, really weird. But what I also notice is that here I cannot click again. So I have to fix that too. So here I can again add the click interaction to the open. So I can also come from this to the opened. And then what I just noticed, like really, really quick things, is that here I think we need to have on the button, I think we wanted to, I actually wanted to have a different color because it doesn't have enough contrast with the background. If this is like this, I just feel like it needs to have a little bit more contrast. So let's do that. I think it's gonna be maybe like 3 here. 4, let's say 4 here, and then here it will have 2, and this will have 6. Not that, but this will have 6, and then a little bit of padding. And a little bit higher. And a little bit more radius. And now I see why we had that gap. Okay, let's take a look at this. Okay, so that looks not bad, but I don't really enjoy the fact that the share feedback is coming in from the right side as I like hover over this. It's not really visible here in the component view, but if we come here and then hover this, you can see that it's like coming from the right side. And yeah, I don't really like that actually. And also I think it's not below the button, so maybe that's gonna make it better if we just set this to, I'm gonna make it right here because I want to make sure that it's applied everywhere. So z index 1, and then this feedback is just gonna stay without z index. So maybe what I can do is here on the default, and on the default from opened, I can select the share feedback, and I can just move them to the left a little bit. So right now they are right here. Oh my god, I wasn't selecting the correct. So I need this value minus 102 on here as well. So it's no longer gonna come in from that position. And also I know that this transition is still really slow here. We're gonna fix that really soon. But yeah, I prefer this transition for the label here. Okay, I think this is not bad. This hover is looking great. And this left padding could be more. I don't know what happened to the left padding there, actually. I will come here and set 20. And then increase this. Okay. So now the last thing that I'm just like, I just don't understand this is that when I close this, why do we have that border appearing around that? Let me try something. So what if this whole thing doesn't have a border? Will it still? Yeah, it's no longer visible. So it's the thing that is causing that is the border. You see, this is how easy to notify, not notify, identify what's the issue. Okay, so border. Let's put that border back. Here it's, we just animate the borders like, okay. I'm so happy I have hacked this system. I know what's gonna be the solution. We're gonna remove this border from everywhere because it seems like animating it's is it because of animating the opacity of the color? I'm gonna reset the override everywhere. So now every single variant has the border opacity. And no, as you can see, it's not the issue. I think Framer has an issue with like animating frames, like animating the size of frames that have border. I mean, the size is animating nicely, but the border is like, it's like getting a bit wider, getting a bit more thicker. So that's something that we have to try and fix. So what I'm thinking is that maybe we can try creating a new frame that will house the border. But maybe that's not gonna be the solution, but let me just try it. So this will be pasted in here. It's gonna be on top of everything, set to absolute. 0 everywhere, 12 pixels of radius, fill nothing, style pointer events none, and user select none, just to make sure that we cannot interact with this border layer. And just add the border here. Add. So now it's right there. Yeah. Let's see if this also has the issue. Yes. But what I'm thinking is that what if we don't animate the border? But how the hell I'm gonna do that? Well, if we know the fixed size of the widget here, then what we can do is we can set this to fixed, and we shouldn't pin it to sides. And so here it's going to be opacity 1, and everywhere else it's going to be opacity 0, but I think we can pin it to the right and to the bottom, just to make sure that on these variants it's going to be like this. It's going to be nicely on the bottom right corner. So here let's just set the opacity to 0 of this layer, of this border layer. It's going to be a completely different effect, but much nicer. Okay, as you can see, as I said when I said at the start of this video that you're going to see me live solving different issues and problems, this is what I meant. As you can see, we ran into an issue and we solved it. Easy. So now here, let's set this to 0.6, and now the interaction is working perfectly. Hover. Boom. And as you can see, it's fluid. What I meant by fluid is that like everything grows out, expands out from the button. And that makes it super fun. Cool. We can also like optimize this by going into this button and setting its tag to button. Okay. And now don't go anywhere because we are not ready. We still cannot send these form messages. And also just like set it to default here. Like this, yeah. So everyone will be like here on the page and they're gonna be like, oh, what is this button? They're gonna hover, share feedback. They're gonna be like, okay, let's share feedback. Ooh, this expanded out so nicely. Name, email, share feedback, and send message, and it's not working yet. Okay, so the to-do list for now is that we have to create, first of all, form send button. So we have to create a form send button component for this send a message with different states, like I don't know, hover state maybe, and then success state and stuff like that. And also I think we can create a component for this complete form section here, because for example, when we send the message, instead of like just showing a success message here, like message sent showing on the button, instead of that we can remove everything from here and then show the message there. And what I also like doing is that I like doing like confettis when people send things in. So for example, let me just show this to you. We have this waitlist here, and just look at what you see when you send this in. It's loading and then bam. Pretty cool. So I think we're gonna have that same confetti on this little design here. first of all, let's do the button. Not the bottom, but the button. Oh my god, I love when I have the button and the bottom word as well in one video. But yeah, whatever. So we have the form send button here. Let's just think about what exactly we want to have here as an effect when someone sends this in. Because we could also have like something really creative. By the way, I'm just gonna lock this border layer because I'm clicking into this and I'm just selecting it all the time. So Command and L for locking a layer. So what we can do is we can like hide all of these, and then I think I cannot really show this to you, but what I want to show is that I'm just gonna make this like bigger and then different corner radius. So we can have something like this. When they send it, the button grows in like this. It starts like loading with the spinner like this. It looks weird here. I don't know why it has this different color. Okay, whatever. We're gonna deal with the spinner a little bit later. Let's remove it for now. But yeah, what I want to say is that we can animate this in when they send in the form, and we can show the message here that message sent, something like this, and we can have the confetti. Let me think if I actually like this idea or not. Okay, I'm not sure if I like that, but I'm gonna make it because I don't really have too much time in this video to think about this. Maybe on the final design we're gonna have something else, but I think in this video we're gonna do that. So when we click send message, we're gonna animate in the button and show the success state like that. So I actually think that I can reuse some of the parts from the waitlist, at least from the button, so we can just get this spinner at least. That's all I need. Okay, so now that we have the spinner on our clipboard, I can go within, or not within, because this is not a component yet. So let's just turn this form send button into a component. Let me just name this a little bit more accurately here. So v2 and then feedback button. Also remove the spinner here and then turn this into a component, paste in the spinner into this, set the opacity to 1. So let me just, yeah, I got this. This is the default. Okay, so I'm gonna set the spinner wrap to absolute positioning, so it's always gonna be in the center. And when I animate the spinner in, I want to make sure that it comes in from a smaller size. So scale 0.1. And then it's also going to be blurred a little bit for blur and opacity 0. Okay, so send message, I think that is correct. Then we need a hover, so hover, or should I think I can just make the hover here. No, I will create a new variant for that, so hover. Well, the hover color here, I'm not really sure about that. Let me just to make sure that I can make sure that it's consistent with the rest of the form buttons on the site. Let me just go here and take a look at what I used for the hover color here. Okay, so it seems like it is 85% transparency. And actually what I see right here is that I used the regular hover state here for the hover. So I think we can also use that in our case here. So let's just do that instead of creating a new variant. Let's just click here, hover, and then 85%. Okay, so this is gonna be instant here. So when I hover over this, I instantly go into the hover state, and then we're gonna have a loading variant. And this is gonna be like a little bit bigger, and then maybe 12 or like 8 radius, and then send message will be blurred, so styles, filter, not BG, but filter blur, 4, transform scale. I think we can scale this up when it disappears, and then opacity 0, and then spinner will come in, opacity 1, scale 1, blur 0. So just to show you, this is how it's gonna look. Yeah, just make sure that this has actually a spring transition. Yeah, this is it. This is how we're gonna transition into the loading. And then here, we're gonna also create on the default another message here. I'm gonna set it to absolute, center it, and then I'm gonna rename it to success, and then let me come up with a message here. Maybe just thanks for your feedback or something like that. So here, transform scale, and then filter blur 4, and then success. Let's also remove the appear interaction because we no longer need that. And then success here, we remove the spinner, scale 1.5, blur 4, opacity 0, and then success comes in. Why is it 1.5, the success? I think we set it to 0.1 here, but I think here on the loading it got overridden. Yeah, let's just reset these. It was because we duplicated the send message, which already had those overrides, so that's why it's behaving a little bit weirdly here. Thanks for your feedback. Okay, and I can see that it is a bit it's a bit too big. So what we're gonna do, somehow we have to make sure that it goes into 2 lines, but I cannot really do that because I have to show it here on the primary, and then thanks for your feedback, maybe like this. Yeah, then we can set it back to 0. Okay, so from loading we're gonna go to a success like this, just to show you how it looks. Boom. And the confetti, I actually wanna copy it from that, from the waitlist, because I really like that setting that I have on the confetti, in terms of the colors that I have here and everything. So just to keep it consistent, I'm going to copy it from there, go back within the feedback button, and then paste it within the primary, and it's going to be centered. And here it's going to be set to visible no, and we're going to only show it here on the success. So that's when the confetti is going to like trigger. So like this. Oh my god, it looks so good as as the text also scales in, and like it almost like pushes these confettis out. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty satisfying. Cool. Yeah, I think that's it for the button. Now what I can do is I can turn this whole form into component, and but before that I can select the button here, and what we can do is we can set as submit button. So now this button acts as the submit button for the form. And by the way, I'm going to set up the send to here. So I'm going to just make sure to put my email here, and then the name will be Framer Uni Feedback, new feedback on Framer Uni, or just new feedback. You just received a new feedback. So this is what I will see in my email when someone sends a feedback. Cool. So now I can turn this form into a component. I'm gonna name this feedback form component. V2. And so here we can have the default variant, and then we can have a loading variant and then a success. But here on the loading, we just set all of these. So first of all, let's set the height to fixed. And then let's set all of these labels to absolute positioning, and then opacity 0. And then pointer events none, and yeah, basically that's it, just to make sure we cannot click them. And then the feedback button will fill up the available width, not the width but the height of this stack, and then go into loading. Then on success, we're gonna show the success here. So what I can do is I can add interactions. When we wrap this form into component, instead of the usual like click, start, or not instead, but on top of those, we also have new triggers like loading, success, error, and stuff like that. So we can use those. So when we go from the default to the loading, it's going to be happening on loading. And then we're going to go to success on success. And usually we go from loading to success really fast, so we cannot really see, like we cannot even see the loading animation. So what I usually do is that on success, when I go from loading to success, I add a little delay. So maybe 0.2. But I think I'm editing the wrong one, because here on loading, I have to remove this, and success. Yes, on success, we're going to go to success with a little delay. And then from success, we're not going to go anywhere. So we can remove the interaction from there. Cool. So now here comes the final test. Hover, perfect. Click, perfect. As you can see, the icon is also animating, it like flips. And then name, Nandi, gmail.com. I think this is cool. And then hover state of the button works. And if I click that, it goes out. And then we see the confettis and everything. And thanks for your feedback. That's it. One thing I noticed is that now when I close this, the form is not animating out. It's because now we have kind of lost that effect. So here, since we turned this into a component, it no longer has the overrides on other variants. So we have to select it on default, default hover, and default from opened. And I have to set it to 0 opacity, and I think it had 4 blur. So now it's gonna be great. Let me take a look. Yeah, so now it's nicely animating. Let me test this again. Send message. Thanks for your feedback. And then this will animate out nicely. Now it's also losing opacity and getting blur when animating this. What I notice is that we still could have a little bit more time spent on here on the loading. So we can like wait a little bit more here, maybe 0.5, just to really see that it's loading. Let me test this again. Send message, and yeah, it was better. What I still notice though is when I click this button, there's like, you will see that there's like a slight jumping around happening. You can see that it's not as smooth, like, I don't know if you can see that, but let's take a look at that. I think it's happening because, let me see. So you remember how I had this like this before, like setting the width, the height to fill? So that's why it is happening. So first it's like it's trying to jump up, and then it's trying to fill up the available height. So what we can do to prevent this is we can set this primary to distribute end. So now everything starts from the end. So when only the button is the relatively positioned element, it will be on the bottom of the stack. So now I think it will be much smoother. So let's test that. So let's click this again. And no, it's like still not perfect. Maybe that wasn't the issue. I think the issue is then a different thing. And that's the fact that here, the radius is 100. And so if we have maybe 8, but I think 8 is going to be too low. So I think what we're going to have instead is that we're going to have like, I think 18 here. And then let's see what happens now. Okay, so let's click this. And yeah, it's much better. It was because the radius was so large on the default variant, then when we're transitioning into a smaller radius, it had to go like a much bigger distance from like 100 to that smaller size radius, and that's why it was happening a little bit more faster. So yeah, now I just want to add like little tweaks to this. So for example, when we open this, maybe we can wait a little bit more to show these contents of the widget. So we can add a little bit delay on those appear effects here. So the way we can do that is we can select the form content. We can add the transition to that. And then here, the transition can have like 0.2 delay. And then we can select the same frame on all other variants. And we can set that delay on those to 0. So it's only going to have the delay when we come to the opened variant. So as you can see, this is how it looks. That first, yeah, so it looks a bit weird, honestly. So I don't know why it starts jumping in from the top. I mean, I kind of know why. Yeah, it's because I think we should not delay the complete form content. Sorry, not the form content, but the form. I was mentioning the right frame. What the fuck is this though? So I think it's because we shouldn't really like delay the whole form content. So we can remove the transition and from these as well. So let me select it on all variants and reset override. So what we can do instead is we can select the top and then the form component within and set the transition on those, and hopefully that's going to solve our problem. So here it's 0.2 and everywhere else it's not going to be there. So here these are zeros. So let's see if now it's better. Yeah, it's definitely better. So as you can see, when we open this, it waits a little bit more to show the content. What we can experiment with though is the hover state here. So we can maybe switch the colors. Maybe I want to have a different color here. So what I'm thinking is that what if the button here is 6 by default? So button 6 and 6 here. And then this one here, the bottom is the 2. Let me see if that's a better effect. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit more subtle. Yeah, I think that might be better. So yeah, basically that's our final design with the smaller tweaks. Of course, we can make further adjustments, and I will probably do, but I don't really want to make this video any longer. So yeah, I do really hope that this was helpful and you could learn something about components and interactions, or maybe the form builder in Framer. And yeah, make sure to go to framer.university, check out the resources and the tutorials I have there and all the components, and make sure to leave your feedback with the new little feedback component. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like it and subscribe for more, and I'm going to see you in the next one.